for you to be able to join us. And again, this is Russ Matthews with Real Dialogue. So the question I have for you, the cinemas are supposedly going to open here in the next month or two. When you get back to them, what is the snack at the snack bar that you've just been craving since you've been in isolation?
Cool.
Zenia, I'll go with you first. How's that?
Look, I'll be honest, the standard snack that I go for is popcorn and Coke, but my favorite and most exciting movie snack is the frozen Mars bar.
Frozen Mars bar. There you go. Love that. Yeah. How about you, Ben? What about you?
Nice choice. I don't think I've been to a cinema with frozen Mars bars. I hope when they reopen, I find one that has them. But otherwise, I'm totally with Zenia around popcorn. I just think popcorn is the business. And no matter how many movies I've watched over how many years, I do not get tired of popcorn. And particularly free popcorn at premieres. It's awesome.
I love free popcorn. And so I'm definitely right there with you. And actually, the one thing that I did not have until I moved to Australia was the chalk top. I had never had a chalk top before. I didn't even know what those were. But now they seem to be kind of a mainstay here in Australia. And so I've come to thoroughly enjoy those. But all right. Well, hey, guys, now cinemas are going to hopefully be opening pretty soon. Are you guys interested in getting back to the cinema?
Hello,
yeah,
Russ,
I think I'm excited.
Russ,
oh, Jason, are you here? I can't see you, Jason.
Jason. Oh, hey, Jason. I can see Jason.
Hello.
Hey, Jason.
Sorry, everyone.
Hi, Jason. I can't see you, but I'm glad that you're here. It's great to see you. How are you, Jason?
I think you look great, Jason. I can see you.
I'm sorry at the moment. I'm just very sorry. I mean, it's probably better that you can't see me anyway, but I'm sorry that I'm late and only half here. But other than that,
hey, you know what? Well, we were just kind of saying, as a director, you always kind of like making your entrance, coming in, also kind of working behind the scenes. So we're thrilled that you're here tonight. And so, Jason, we've already kind of. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, yes, I'm just being a diva.
Okay, so Jason, the very important question that we've asked Zenia and Ben is, so when you get back to the cinemas, what is the snack that you've just been so excited to be able to get?
Oh, well, I mean, I've just been eating them anyway, even though I'm not going to the movies, but that's just ice cream. So I would normally, if they have a peppermint choc top, I would have one of those. But then I would buy a bottle of water too, because I don't like getting messy hands from the ice cream. So I tend to get a water to then wash my hands after it in my seat.
In the cinema.
You wash your hands in the cinema?
Yeah, I get a bottle of water and I'll just pour it on my hands to kind of clean them up after the mess I make with my ice cream.
There you
so
go.
my sink's normally wet regardless of what milk.
There you go. Well, thanks for sharing that, Jason. So I'll definitely have to remember that next time we go to the movies together. A peppermint chalk top. I'll make sure to get that for you. Hey, so also the other question I was asking, Jason, if you want to start off, and we can kind of work around the table. So, are you guys excited about getting back to the cinemas? Are you hoping that they open soon? Will you be going back to them?
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit naive, but I will definitely be going back. Yes, I can't wait to go back to the cinemas. I have really missed it. Also, live theatre I've missed a lot. And yes, I will definitely go back, and I can't wait till they open.
All right, fantastic. How about you, Ben, Zenia?
I'm a classic chatter in the movie. So if I don't have someone next to me, if I've got to sit 3 seats away from somebody, I think I'll just stay at home. But once we're in that world, we can sit together and pester each other and make comments, then I'll be back.
Oh, there you go. So you probably really enjoy kind of the Facebook Live or the Netflix party, that sort of thing where you can watch it with a friend, even if you're online. Is that the deal?
I haven't tried that yet, but I live in a house of 4 people, so they get an earful when we watch. Yeah.
There you go. How about you, Ben? You excited about getting some free popcorn, maybe?
Yeah, if there's free popcorn, I'm definitely in. Look, I like the streaming options that we've got going on at the moment, Russ. It's amazing how much access we have to movies and TV now. But like Jason was like pointing towards, there's something amazing about being in the cinema that, like Jason, I hope this doesn't kill them. I hope they always remain. I hope you're always able to see film up on a big screen, because like for an engrossing experience, you can't really beat being in a theater, a small one or a large one. But I can't replicate it at my house. I don't know about anybody else, but I can't conjure that up what a cinema has.
No, yeah, it's. I think you're totally right. I think it's one of those, and it's also most movies are made for the big screen opposed to the small screen, and so they're even better in that experience. So it's true. So now, one thing, again, please, people, send in your questions if you have questions for Ben, Zenia, or Jason, the director, the actress, and the film critic, as in regards to their views on cinema. But also, one thing that's kind of unique about you three, and the reason why we kind of brought you together, not only being a part of the industry in different components and ways, is that you'd be professing to be Christians, and so being a Christian in the industry, also you're kind of your place where you are at when it comes to if it's writing or if it's acting or directing. How is that unique for you? And what are probably some of the biggest challenges that you find being a Christian in the entertainment industry? Zenia, well, how about if we go with you first?
Yeah, I mean, I think being a Christian, full stop, means that you do think differently to many people around you who don't profess faith. And so taking that into a workplace, makes you stand out even more, especially with selecting content for me. I know that often it can be challenging to say no to things that I don't ethically or, morally align with. And
Right.
and that's a challenge. And also having to explain that to people who maybe don't understand, or, you sort of are caught between a rock and a hard place because you really want to take opportunities, but in the grand scheme of things, they may not give you integrity.
Right. There you go. How about you, Ben?
Russ, I'm one of those guys who grew up as a Christian, drifted off, came back later in life, realized that I said I was a Christian, but then kind of wasn't, and then got convicted about a decade ago. And in around that is when I was being a film reviewer, and I moved to Sydney, worked at Empire magazine, and that was awesome because I got to watch movies all the time. But at the same time, I was very challenged by stuff I was watching more than I had been in the past. And so as a Christian, I wanted to witness well what I believed and what I lived out. And some of the things I'm seeing aren't necessarily aligning with that. But by the same token, plenty of movies aren't professing to be Christian. Plenty of movies are representing all kinds of different ideas. And we as Christians live in the world that's surrounded by all kinds of different ideas and beliefs, et cetera, et cetera. So as a Christian, I've found it quite challenging to know how to respond to films and TVs, first personally, but then also writing about them. But I think actually my writing about them's improved since I became a stronger Christian, because I think about things more and I weigh things up more. And I'm really interested in what movies and TV shows are actually trying to say to us, and then respond to what the movie is saying, as well as how I think Christianity intersects with that or doesn't.
There you go. Well, thanks for that. That's interesting because you do kind of sit in both. Since you work for Empire, but now working for Eternity, you kind of get to see both seats, but then also kind of understanding both sides of the equation, I guess.
Yeah, try to bring the two things together, but sometimes it can be a bit lame because you can really try to force Jesus in there, or you really want to get to the bit where you're preaching at people about how great Jesus is, which I think Jesus is great, but you shouldn't just use movies and TV as a platform for that. And Zenia and Jason are in a better position than me to be able to share that, as in I'm sure they don't want to use movies and TV to preach at people, but they would want to share of their Christian faith through what they do, however that would look.
Yeah. So thanks, Ben. So Jason, I'd really be curious too, especially because you sit in two seats as an actor and also as a director. How does your faith actually really impact you, or what is maybe some of the biggest struggles you found?
Well, when I was working for a church, thought I was going to become a minister, and then went into the industry. And I think the first thing that happened was a lot of my Christian friends told me not to go into the performing arts or film and TV industry because it was so dangerous, as they so I was warned against it. And so there's always been a little bit where I have felt a little bit distant and disconnected a little bit, both from my church community in my role, and then also being a Christian then in the film and TV world. So I often feel like I'm sitting outside whatever group I'm in. But I think over the last kind of 10 years that I've been just working in the industry, I think the challenges have changed from season to season. And I think at the moment, the thing that I'm, I guess, wrestling with is that there's a lot of things that as an actor and a director, I'm kind of pretty happy to do. I'm pretty happy to go to dark, weird places, but I have to remember that when I do those things are public, and so they also reflect on, my wife and my children and my wider family and my church family. So as a very stark example, when I do a theatre piece where I'm acting in a rape scene, which I have done, I know how to handle that as a Christian. But when my Bible study's sitting in the first row, that's something I need to be considerate of.
Wow.
So I think the challenges I have are less personal than they used to be, but they're more now. I actually represent my family and my community because I'm public in this storytelling. And so I need to take into consideration, if I do a rape scene, how does that reflect on my wife? How will people see my wife differently as opposed to just seeing me differently? So that they're the struggles I'm currently kind of, in the middle of. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's a really great jumping off point. I think that's actually something, going back to one of the things you said too, is the perception that people have about people going into the entertainment industry. And again, just as a reminder, friends, just send in your questions if you have any questions for Ben, Zenia, or Jason. But Jason, one of the things you brought up was the fact that a lot of your Christian friends actually thought maybe you kind of fell away from the faith in wanting to go into that industry. So I would love to hear a little bit more, kind of tease out a little bit more about what that is, and what would you encourage more Christians actually to go into, say, the entertainment industry? I'd love to hear any of your positions, but we'll start with you, Jason. I'd love to hear that.
Just to answer that second question first, because I forgot the first part of what you were saying, but the second bit about in terms of encouraging other Christians to go into it, I totally would. I just, yes, if I knew that of any Christian who wanted to kind of go into that world, I would give them a very strong encouragement before I would let them know of any of the hard things about it. I think the industry needs more Christians. I think it's a storytelling, we're in the business of storytelling, and Christianity is Jesus was a storyteller. The Bible is full of stories. God is a storytelling God. So I'm pretty convinced of that. And so from a creative point of view, I think that Christians have the ability to have great imaginations because they know a creator God who's given them an imagination. So I think Christians have just as good imaginations as anyone else, and they're able to express themselves as much as anyone else. But I would also say then that Christians love and serve other people. And so why you wouldn't want to put more people who are loving and serving other people and not themselves, into an industry. Like, I just think, if there's Christians out there who know that their first calling is to love the Lord their God with all their heart, soul, and mind, and then love their neighbor like that as well, I would say totally go into that industry where you can love your neighbor and serve other people. So I would encourage them strongly to go into it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Jason. I don't know, Zenia, Ben, I don't know if you'd like to be able to speak into that position or what.
I think it took me a lot of time to be able to align with what Jason just said, because being a Christian actor, it's very rare that I see other Christians around me doing those things, more often than not, you have to really find them, and it's almost like looking for a needle in a haystack. So, we're in a world where even as Christians, we may intend to go out and influence the culture around us, but it's very possible that we could be colonized by it. And there are so many desirable things within hand's reach, and our flesh and our humanity wants those things that are self-serving, and it's so hard to really discern sometimes and to separate them. So I would say that what Jason said is absolutely right. Our God is a creative God, and it's wonderful to have Christians flourishing and infesting all areas of workspace. But it's really helpful when you can do that with a solid Christian community and people to come back to and talk to about work, and just have a social barometer in a way. Yeah, I would say do so cautiously and sensibly, I guess. But yeah, don't be held back because you think it's black and white, it's wrong. No, I think God is creative, and He specifically designed you to be the way that you are if you feel pulled that way, and He knows why, and He knows who you're meant to knock heads with, and who you're supposed to have conversations with, and which coordinates on the sphere of the earth you're meant to stand in. So He's there, so nothing to be afraid of, I guess.
There you go. Thanks, Zenia. Hey, I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to go right over to the question. Anthony's had a couple good points over here. I'm going to bring up this. I really appreciate both of your input, but also I really can resonate with what Anthony's trying to ask here. Is why do you think that most Christian characters in movies and television are portrayed as weird at best and downright loony at worst? So why do you think that is? I mean, I don't know. I'd love to hear what you think, Ben, Jason, Zenia.
Aren't movies and TV just holding back a mirror to society? So what society broadly, in the West at least, thinks of what Christians are, isn't, or is that just too simple, Jason and Zenia?
Oh no, I think that's a really fair point, Ben, and actually, perceptive one that actually we've got to remember how we are perceived by most of the Western world. And I don't know. I feel like I couldn't rattle off a whole bunch of Christian characters I can think of from films. But I think one reason I would never, in one sense, want to write or direct or act someone who's explicitly Christian is because often you feel like if you show them as being broken or flawed, that's somehow bringing God. It feels like they've got to be perfect, or at the end of the day they've got to win the day, or they've got to kind of be slightly more morally better than other people, which I just think becomes a slippery territory. So, yeah, I just think that actually portraying a Christian properly in a film is tricky.
It also depends on the purpose of the character and the film, like the message of the film too, doesn't it? Like what are the people behind it trying to say? So are they trying to uphold that Christian character? Then therefore maybe they're getting them wrong slightly, or maybe they're having a go. One of the best ones I saw recently was that Netflix series, Unbelievable, that I think Merritt Weather's character, she's a cop, a detective alongside Toni Collette's character. She's a great representation of a Christian on screen, I think, mainly because she seems normal. And even when she seems weird in her Christian stuff, she still gets treated by the overall production and the way people respond to her as normal. And so there's something quite refreshing about the fact that she's just a normal person, but she happens to believe in Jesus and occasionally references Bible verses. I think that's a really good depiction, I think.
Yeah. Well, and actually, I think it goes to one of the points that Jason even brought up, that I think if we had more people from maybe a Christian faith in the industry, maybe we get some people who actually have different than just a perception, but actually have a true, honest portrayal of Christianity even in their writing. So I think that's probably a really good point. There's a bunch of questions, but so I'm going to kind of jump over there to that. If you guys want to answer anything that I've asked, I don't want to lose some of these questions. So one from Hope, who actually says, how would you broach the topic of the issue that you might grapple with to be a young person, and what advice would you give them in maintaining a strong Christian walk in the midst of what you're doing in the industry? So how do you, Zenia, I think you kind of brought this up, like, how do you maintain your faith when you're maybe wrestling with some of the different issues that are going on in the industry or in media?
Great question.
I think surrounding yourself with a strong Christian community is very, very helpful, and having time to reflect on what you're doing, and holding that up against scripture, saturating yourself in that, I suppose, because then you'll be convicted, hopefully, and when you have to take rejection and you bring that to your Christian community, they can help you distill and understand that with a different mind frame.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know, Jason, did you want to, I don't know if you want to share something within that, especially with, I guess you kind of approached it with kind of some of the struggles you've had. Was it portraying certain things on stage and the like?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think what Zenia said, I would just say that is so helpful. And that's kind of, is the very helpful thing. And just that community and actually sticking close to the Bible. And I actually think having a really close walk with Jesus, because it's going to be, sometimes it is going to be your gut or your conscience. There's been so many things where I've been offered things and it's just my gut knows it's kind of wrong. And I think it's part of that thing of just kind of really praying and asking God, is this something you don't want me to be involved with? And again, I've made bad decisions too. I've kind of said yes to things I shouldn't have, said no to things I wish I had. So, I also think, as maybe Zenia knows, and Ben too, with even things he's chosen to review or not review, we kind of make mistakes. And I think if I look back my 10 years working in this industry, like it's full of mistakes and full of things where I think I didn't represent Jesus well there. And so I think that's why the community, as Zenia was saying, and kind of just knowing actually what your Bible says so that you kind of know what to put those things up against. Yeah, that would be just basically what Zenia said is all I should have really said.
But what Zenia said. We'll come back to you. Well done. That was fantastic. Okay. All right. We're going to jump over here because this is actually kind of go down a different tact, but I think that it was probably something that it's been asked for like 2 or 3 times. So I think it's Samantha was actually asking, tell us some of your favorite project that you've worked on. So in the industry and media and the like, but 2, what film can you really point to a film that maybe drew you to working in the industry as a critic, as an actress, or as a director? So I'll just throw that out to all of you. You can answer one or both of those questions if you'd like. Thanks, Samantha.
I can go first. I find it reasonably easy to answer. So the project that I was involved with, if you can call it that, was Empire Magazine. So getting to work at Empire Magazine, which I hope most people know of, which is an excellent movie magazine. It's been around for ages. I just wanted to work at that since I was a kid, and I got to work there. So that just like blew my mind to be able to do that. It was so great. So Empire Magazine for me. And the movie, I think, is Back to the Future. I could bore everyone here silly with like all the different movies. We could go around talking about all your favorites, and like my list is really, really long and all that sort of stuff, and genres and directors and blah blah. But the movie, to like narrow it down, Back to the Future pretty much contains everything that I think a great movie should contain. And also I remember seeing it as a 9-year-old or 10-year-old or whatever I was in the cinema with my brother and my dad. And this goes back to your cinema question before, like how amazing it was to be absorbed in the world of Marty McFly. Is like still like I'm still excited by it.
I can tell. Roads,
Back to the Future.
We don't need where we're going. Yeah. Wow. That's great, Ben. Thanks for sharing that. What about you, Zenia? What was something that maybe drew you in?
This
cinema.
This is really embarrassing, but I think it was just growing up on cheesy Bollywood films when my parents moved to Australia and were missing home. I think I had a huge crush on Bollywood superstar Shah Rukh Khan, and in order for me to meet him, in order for him to know that I existed, in order for him to consider me, I had to be in the film. And so I think that's where it came from.
That's really quite smart.
You have your little daydreams, and then one day you realize, hey, there's a science behind this, and there's actually a lot of thinking, and it's not just about having teeth. So later on, all of that came with. But yeah, to be honest, I think it was Shah Rukh Khan.
There you go. All right. Well, so did you have a favorite project that you've been on, Zenia?
Yes, Hotel Mumbai. I think just working with such established actors at a tiny role, but I've never been part of anything with such a huge budget and traveled so much for a film, and made relationships. So Hotel Mumbai.
Yeah, just so you know, definitely recommend it. for mature and discerning audiences, as far as there's some pretty intense scenes. It's based on the true story there, and it's fantastic. Hey, Jason, what about you? What's your favorite project, and what really drew you into the industry?
I think probably favorite. I guess probably it was in 2016. I got to go to America and just make a short film over there. So I was over there for a month, and I guess while I left my wife and my kids at home, I kind of had a month there to just only kind of think about the film, and that was a very precious thing in the sense that I got to just throw myself in. Every minute of every day was just working towards this project, and that was actually a beautiful thing. Although, I did leave my wife stranded with our 3 young kids, which she's forgiven me for. But
well, real quick though, before you go on though, Jason. Before you go on though, explain real quick. You won a contest to direct a film with Maggie Gyllenhaal, right? Isn't that how it ended up working out?
Yeah, I had written a script and entered a competition, and my script was chosen. So I went over there and made a film with Maggie Gyllenhaal and the production company over there. So that was a while ago now, but a very blessed, privileged experience.
How was that?
Yeah, right. Maggie Gyllenhaal.
How is she?
Terrifying. She was also,
I love Donnie Darko.
Yeah. She's very nice and terrifying. She's very intimidating, but no, it was great. She was very nice. I actually got really sick over there from, I think it was the hotel air conditioning. So when I first met her, my face was so dry from being in a hotel so much that I kind of the skin on my face was peeling all off my face, and she had to make me tea when I got to her house just to kind of settle me down.
Wow.
But she was very gracious and generous, and it was an awesome thing to be part of. It was great just working in LA and with those people that really know what they're doing. It was very cool.
And you can watch that actually on your website, can't you, Jason? You can watch it on the jasonperini.com. Can you watch that?
Yeah, you can. I mean,
okay, I know you're being humble. That's great. Hey, so what's the film that drew you in besides getting to work with Maggie Gyllenhaal? So what else? What was the film that kind of drew you into the industry? I'd be curious.
Well, when I was in primary school, I wanted to be an animator for Disney. So I actually think the first thing where I was blown away by films was Aladdin and the Lion King. I think I knew that those stories just blew me away. And then as I got older, I think it was just admiring kind of actors. I used to love Leonardo DiCaprio, still kind of do. And films like Catch Me If You Can. I remember seeing Catch Me If You Can and just being completely in that. And then as it kind of went on, I guess a film, Punch Drunk Love, by Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, wow.
My favorite films.
Jason, I gave that 5 stars. I gave that 5 stars, man. That is a ripper. That's so underrated, that movie. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
No, that's awesome to hear. No. But I think it, and I came from a theatre background too. So I think it was also watching a lot of theatre as a kid and stuff as well. Kind of knew that I wanted to be in the acting, directing, writing world but I came through the theatre and then kind of discovered more film stuff later on.
That's great. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Jason. That's fantastic. I can tell you and Ben are going to have to catch up and kind of talk about your favorite films. Hey, well, but this is interesting as far as a segue, because I'm going to kind of paraphrase Kelly's question over here, because I think that you kind of started with it, Jason, and we didn't really get to kind of tease it out too much. But the value of, but Zenia has actually brought it up, and the value of a Christian community that you can actually kind of gain encouragement from, but also come back to, especially if you're having different challenges within the industry. Kelly asked a question. So do you belong to a Christian fellowship group or in the industry, or are you part of maybe a church that really has an outreach to people in the industry, or is there one that you can maybe recommend? Any of you, I'm sorry.
I'm part of a WhatsApp group of Christian actors titled The Actors Connect, and I think there are about 40 of us on that group, and we share insights and what we're working on, auditions. We pray for each other, struggles, that's been helpful. I think it being a smaller group has been helpful than some of the bigger online platforms. I've also been making a conscious effort to reach out to Christians in the industry to have a bit of one-on-one insight. It has been challenging, but it's something that I've been trying to be intentional about. And of course, church Bible study. I think hanging out with non-creatives for me has been amazing because it just anchors me into the real world and helps me equalize everything and not put my own industry up on a pedestal. And that's been really humbling.
There you go. Thanks, Zenia. Ben, your church kind of does a lot of stuff with Christians in the media and stuff like that, don't they?
Yeah, well, the church I'm part of is a church called Village Church in Annandale in Sydney. And when I first moved to Sydney 10 or 12 years ago, there was a group there that was very strong called Christians in the Media. And the reason I went to that church is because this group was there called Christians in the Media. And that does what it says in the title. And it was largely a support network for all kinds of different Christians who worked in all kinds of different media roles. It's not as strong at the moment, the network, as it has been, but it was very helpful to me. For similar reasons that Zenia and Jason have mentioned around accountability and just anchoring you more in scripture and keeping you thinking through what you're doing and how you're living out your Christian life in what it is you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So that's Christians in the Media, not as strong as it was, but it still operates, but more informally now through just people know people.
Yeah, that's just it's also important because I think that both of you bring up two good points. Is one, be able to find other people in the industry that you can have something in common with, but also, Zenia, I think being a part of a really good church, regardless if they're actors or directors or whatever, it really brings so much value and also helps to ground you in so many different ways too. Is that what you're kind of saying, I guess?
Yeah,
definitely.
And how encouraging. I just want to say, like, Mary Kate Thompson just put a comment up saying that she was so encouraged by Christian films and the positive impact they had at a low point. That's so lovely to hear. That's so nice to hear on the other end of it, that it does uplift you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mary Kate, for kind of sharing that as far as the impact, because I think film really does kind of speak into so many people's lives and be able to kind of meet them where they are, be it Christian films and also other films that you're able to kind of come into in regards to that. So thank you so much, Mary Kate, for that. Jason, I don't know if you wanted to say anything specifically about that last question about Christian community and all that, the value of it, because really kind of stepping off one of your points was that sometimes the Christians were kind of hard on you a little bit, but have you found kind of more of a community or church that you've been able to be a part of?
I guess no, but I think that may be my personal flaw. That I think when there's been lots of groups that I've kind of heard of or kind of been asked to be part of in the past, and sometimes I'm just not often very good at being part of those groups for whatever reason. But whenever I hear of a Christian in the industry, I genuinely, my heart genuinely kind of jumps. Like if someone says, "Oh, a Christian friend of mine is doing this in the industry," I get super excited. So I do love it. So I'm not, but I haven't been good at kind of finding the groups. But I'm similar to what Zenia said too. That in a sense, just being in a Bible study with school teachers and butchers and lawyers, and I actually just find being around Christians kind of helpful, and that's kind of what even when they're doing something different to me, I find that just as kind of helpful and encouraging, because they all have dilemmas that they're dealing with and ethical issues. The butcher or the lawyer, they're all struggling with things. So I find just the melting pot of all the different struggles just as helpful as if it was, talking to another director or actor or things. But I do love that, Christians around and those groups exist. I'm just not good at being part of them, sadly.
There you go. Well, I definitely want to encourage you with that. And so thanks so much for being transparent about that, though, Jason. Appreciate it. No. Hey, it looks like Samantha has a question for you guys in regards to, do you have an example of God's presence in your work, either on set or at the magazine or with what you're doing? Do you have any sort of stories about, or even what you're writing right now? Are there different things that you see how God is kind of working in that?
I'm remembering more the examples of when I didn't have God like involved. So
Right.
for like the longest time when I was reviewing full time for different newspapers and magazines, I think I was leaving God outside the cinema, which I know isn't actually possible now, and but I didn't really think that through. So I would just go in, I think, like everybody else, and kind of come out like everybody else, and write like everybody else. And it wasn't until I started, so this is going more towards the question, when I started realizing God is part of everything that I do and should inform everything that I do, that I did start noticing. And that actually made it more challenging for me as a reviewer to work out what I subjectively think of something and objectively and all that sort of thing. So I actually found it became a little bit more chaotic in my head, trying to allow God in. But I think that's because God calls me to a higher standard than I was calling myself to previously.
There you go. Yeah. Thanks, Ben. I don't know if did you, Zenia, Jason, did you want to jump in on that?
I love what.
Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, Zenia. You can't see me, can you? So I'll just start talking. Is that right? You can't.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, we can.
See,
I can see you.
I can't.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, blind. I was just going to say I can think of plenty of examples where actually I've seen God at work in just the relationships I've had, kind of when I'm not working, as in when you're on set or when you're kind of spending time with other people. But yeah, in terms of my specific work, that's something that I'm still kind of enjoying trying to discover God's presence. I guess I don't know whether this is cheating the answer a little bit, but I think if because at the moment I'm writing, directing, and acting, and kind of doing all three at the same time for different things. And I think if I'm just trying to portray human beings as observe them as well as I can, portray them with dignity as much as I can, and be truthful about it. I feel like that maybe is God's presence, that actually I'm not trying to take shortcuts with trying to show people the human experience, but actually trying to go deep and full and rich with it. I would say maybe that's where I'm seeing God's presence, but that may be a cheat answer.
No. I think it's an honest answer. I think it's great. So that's fantastic. Zenia, you were about to jump in. Did you want to say anything else, or?
I was just going to say that I think for me to initiate this kind of work, coming from an unhelpful, maybe slightly legalistic background, having a type A personality, being a people pleaser, wanting to, come home with distinction and master everything. And I think for me to be able to step into another character's shoes and look at the life decisions that they have made and look at why they have come to this point, and to get alongside them and empathize them and not judge them, is something that requires the presence of God in me to do. And I think if it wasn't for the creative work that I had the opportunity to step into, I wouldn't have grown as a Christian in my everyday life, to be able to look at people and see that they are the characters that I've been studying, and perhaps I need to approach them that way too. So at the start, I think God had to be present for me to initiate working in this industry.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, thanks. I really appreciate all of your transparency. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you there, Zenia. Sorry about that. You kind of paused. Well, hey, actually, we're almost coming close to the end of our time. I know this time always goes by pretty quick. We got started a little bit late, but I wanted to kind of probably bring it home, and I'm going to try and kind of incorporate Samantha's question, but also kind of tack something on to the end of it. And I'll let each one of you answer it, and then we'll just kind of finish up probably for the night. But one is somebody, you have a Christian who's interested in getting into your field, what you want to do in the industry. What would be your recommendation? And also, what do you see as kind of the future of the industry? Is there a quick what do you see, if you could kind of foresee kind of what's coming? What do you think about the industry itself? So what would you recommend? You can answer both questions, or you can just answer one of them. I'll let you, and we'll start with you, Jason, since I can't see it.
I'll be quick. I think if there was was the first people who wanted to get into it. Is that right? And kind of
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Industry. Yeah, I mean, I would just say, just try and get as much experience as you can. I know that's kind of a general thing to say, but just really work out what is the thing you want to do and go hard in actually figuring out what the craft of that is. I think I often think that people often resist going into kind of acting or that kind of world because they're scared of the moral dilemmas. But you've got to be pretty lucky enough to get work to have those moral dilemmas. I think actually, if you want to get into it, if you want to be an actor or a director or a writer or a film critic, just get good at those skills and stay close to your Christian community. And then as far as the future goes for things, I'm not sure with the coronavirus stuff. I know that a lot of my friends in the live kind of performing arts are really struggling. But I think even now, I was chatting to my agent today and she's already feeling much more optimistic about a lot of work coming through. So I just think we live in a diverse world. Hopefully the stories keep being diverse and interesting, and I think it's here to stay would be my take.
Thanks so much, Jason. That's great. How about you, Ben? You're shaking your head there. What do you think?
I got to work at Empire Magazine, which I always wanted to work at, and then I ended up jumping ship. I quit that job and I went to, as you mentioned earlier, Russ, I went to a Bible college. I did a theology degree, and I don't regret that decision. Like, I'm glad I did it. My passions were changing and I wanted to be able to communicate things of Jesus in different ways. However, this is going to your question. I would highly recommend any Christian getting into writing about film or TV or entertainment, for that matter, for similar reasons to Zenia and Jason, that it's great to have Christians in all walks of life. And so sometimes I love what I do now. We get to share good news that's Christian based all over the place. But sometimes I'd really like to actually work for another place that the aim isn't to share the news of Jesus, but how can you actually do that appropriately through what you do? I actually wouldn't mind the challenge of that again. So I would encourage people to do that, because we do need Christians all over the shop. And like Jason was saying, though, it would be helpful though if people trying to get into it actually knew what they were doing. They practiced. They worked at it. They weren't just doing it because they thought they had something to say, but you've actually got something to say. Because, the internet's full of people who've got stuff to say, but really, do we need to hear it? And in terms of the future of the industry, hoping that cinemas will come back, I'm sure film and television is going to kick on. Definitely the streaming services are going to keep that alive. I'm very interested to see what happens for you guys, Zenia and Jason, in terms of your work opportunities and how you get projects up in the future. I think the biggest struggle will be for people getting projects up, and how do you get financing? Already that's difficult. How do you do it now if you're not already in Stan like Zenia or in Netflix? What do you do? But that's why I'm a film reviewer, because I have no creative ability to create my own projects. I'll just sit over here and tell people about other people's projects.
There you go. Hey, thanks, Ben, so much. All right, Zenia, you get to wrap it up for the panel. So what would be your advice, and also what's your thoughts on the future of the industry?
I think know why you're doing it. If it's for fame, I would say maybe it isn't the place for you, because it comes to very few, and I don't know that it'll satisfy you either. Train really hard, like the boys said, because you have to have, some skill. And it's always nice when Christians are really good at what they do, because that's what's going to them move forward too. And I guess build a life around it, because it's easy. I think a challenge I have is it's easy to feel like the on-screen life is something magical and better than our real life. But real life is pretty sacred. And there's some amazing things that happen in our real life. And just build that too. It helps with rejection you may face.
That's right. I'm sure you don't experience too much rejection. I'm sure, Zenia. At all.
Every one of us does.
That's right. Well, I think, yeah, that's just kind of a part of the business, and I think a part of life, isn't it? So I think that this conversation has been great. I could probably continue on for like another hour. There's so many other questions that were asked. Just so you know, guys, all those that have been asking questions, you can put those questions also on the Movies Change People, also the Hope at Home kind of feed. And actually, even Daniela, I think Daniela Smythe, I actually wrote an article on the whole faith-based films that we can send that to you. Also, I'm sure Ben has written on it too. I'd love to be able to kind of chat with you more about that. And but we're going to have to kind of come to a conclusion. So I apologize that we're going to have to cut this conversation short. It's been fantastic talking with Ben, Jason, and Zenia.